Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. We're again, John, Dave, and myself are going to look back over our draw against Wasps at the weekend, all the other European Cup action, and look forward to our quarter-final against Bath. So, boys, somehow or other, we drew. We thought we were going to go away to the south of France or England or somewhere, and ended up getting Bath in the quarter-final in Dublin.
How we did it, I have no idea, but well, I do. But it wasn't expected. Pleasant surprise. Reminded me a little bit of our game in Treviso, where we blew a dropper at the end, ended up drawing the game. But when you look back on it, even though you felt really frustrated at the time, it was only a point less than we would have got for winning it, and so it's a similar situation where we're finding ourselves in a situation that we thought was desperate, but turns out, hey, a bit of luck with a few other results, and away we go.
Yeah, we're just obviously the kind of the club / provincial season takes a break to a certain extent. Not a break, but there's a kind of a natural end point at this point before the international rugby starts, and you kind of look at it and you'd have to think that we've kind of reached base camp, relatively successfully.
It's interesting actually that O'Connor actually said that this is like the next time he gets the players back, all the internationals back, he has until the end of the season, so he can do really whatever we want with them. So that's
that's a very valid point. But we've reached base camp. We're fourth in the Pro 12, 4 points off top. We've got our home quarter final. Now there's a big discussion to be had about how we got there. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we've got there, and if I told you back in August that this is where we'll be right now, with Sean O'Brien to come back into the team, with Cian Healy to come back into the team, Marty Moore just back into the team, McFadden stepping back into the team looking great, Luke looking great, seemingly finding a way to live with Goppert, Madigan and Fitzgerald all at the same time. Ben Teo can only get better. And all these kind of things happening. And I said, right, at the end of January, this is where we'd be. You'd have taken the hand off me.
Absolutely, mate.
Well, considering how our other provincial rivals are doing, they're all just a couple of points ahead of us in the Pro 12.
They just keep wasting money on academies, you see.
Well, they should get rid of it and everyone play AIL, I suppose. But anyway, first of all, I suppose the thing we want to talk about is whether or not there should have been greater sanction to Ashley Johnson for taking out Dave Carney after 5 seconds of the game.
I don't think I've heard any commentator really saying that it shouldn't have been a red. It should,
Well, actually, Dricko on the commentary said it should have been a yellow.
Yeah, I hear, actually, now that you say it, Stephen Lal said it, but I think they changed their mind fairly quickly after seeing the replay. I mean, we were sitting with a fairly good view, but it was kind of directly opposite us. And it was from the kickoff, and the minute I saw it, he's got to get red. It turned out it was the same referee that sent Jared Payne off a year ago at a similar.
You take that and you take the fact that it was literally the first piece of contact in the entire match, and in a vital match. I mean, that's a huge amount of pressure on a referee.
Yeah.
I think he made a mistake in his judgment, but it's not like it was an egregious error that you couldn't see coming from anywhere. I mean,
there's some sympathy for him too.
It was an understandable human error that it's easy for us to say after seeing it 100. I mean, I suppose he could have gone to the TMO, but I think he was fairly sure of what he saw when he saw it, kind of thing. But now that he didn't get the red, I don't want him sanctioned any further at all, because
it's no advantage to us.
Yeah, it's no advantage to us. I mean, people are saying, he should get such and such a ban, and if you look at the way that these bans are working nowadays, they're working in terms of they're not banning players for times when they wouldn't be playing. So if he's got I don't know what the Aviva Premiership schedule is, if he's got a couple of weeks off, I mean, his ban wouldn't start until the end of that. We want him available for Wasps against Toulon. Yeah, so
preferably, put
a
dent in.
Yes, it should have been a red card. That should have been. In fairness to Garces, it should have been obvious. It wasn't. You could see why he made the mistake, but anyway. But now we don't want any more.
You can see why he probably, after binning Jared Payne after I think it was 6 minutes or something, he probably got a lot of stick from all quarters.
That was 6 minutes, but it's 6 seconds.
For 6, to do the same thing, so the guy is gone for the whole match. That's probably what was going through his head. I'm going to get awful stick if I send this guy off.
There is an element that refs aren't supposed to indulge in relativism. That's the other side of it.
Of course.
It doesn't matter if it happens in the first minute, the last minute, or any point in between.
What you're saying is Alain Roland would have sent him off.
But they're human though as well.
Yeah, well, you see, that's it. I mean, we have to take that. I mean, the players make mistakes, coaches make mistakes, supporters make mistakes. There's no reason why referees shouldn't. They're not infallible. You know.
No, but the injustice of it really is that Dave Carney was off within minutes and he was back on after 10 minutes.
Well, that's the other side of it. I mean, it to a certain extent, there's an echo of the Paul O'Connell situation where, Carney pretty much was out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, there's talk that he's going to be out for the Italy game.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure that I'm not sure he would have started in that game.
Possibly not, but I mean, he's still
I
not
think,
in consideration for it.
Oh, he certainly would have been. I think Messrs. Bow and McFadden have the wing slots pretty much tied up at the way they've been playing anyway.
Well, talking of McFadden, he scored a fabulous try. I mean, we just went.
Yep.
We started off at 100 miles an hour. In
Nearly
the game
scored the second one too. He was damn close.
McFadden was excellent. Has been since he's come back. I mean, everything he does is just it makes everything he does makes Leinster better.
That was a lovely line out. It was actually thrown to the back and then passed through the middle into
Toner. Yeah.
I was still less than impressed with our mauling.
Or defence of the maul.
But once it came out, it worked out well. I mean, Heaslip actually his more telling intervention is in the next phase of play, where instead of just passing the ball straight on, he drops it backwards to the guy coming from behind, which kind of opens up their line for us. If you look here, there.
It was just the way the numbers now. They had a man in the bin there, and we pulled them all into the maul in the first place, and they just didn't have the way the numbers out wide. So it was literally just mathematics.
He's little pass backwards is took one man advantage and turned it into a 2-man advantage kind of thing. But it took some finish. I mean, McFadden's very strong, very good handoff, and he's just such a good player.
He's a brute of a player. He later in the game when the try that he almost got, he actually went through 4 players, and it took 4 of them to get him on the ground. And he made a few serious hits as well.
Oh, he's a huge hard hitter, hard tackler. It was a good play from. It was a Rob Carney. He picked that ball up around his ankles, kind of thing. I mean, it was a good play. I mean, McFadden could have had another one shortly afterwards. Madigan blew.
Yeah.
I mean, literally a sitter. Mm-hmm. He had a mixed game, Madigan.
Madigan had a very mixed game, and considering that he's going to be our playmaker and general on the pitch, presumably against Italy in the Six Nations. It's better to get that performance out of the way, I guess.
Possibly where it didn't ultimately do any damage.
Yeah, I mean, he missed quite a few kicks, as you said. He blew an overlap chance, and he wasn't anywhere near as confident or playing with his confidence.
I mean,
right in the middle of all that as well, he had a kick out in the full. It was literally after the restart from one of his missed penalties. He did a long kick out on the full. So
in fairness to Madigan,
that's a lot of errors.
He doesn't miss a lot of penalties.
No, he doesn't,
and he hasn't missed a lot of penalties this year. And one of them was very long.
But I will say, after being at the match, now admittedly we were 15-20 meters up in the stand. It was very windy, and it didn't really come across on the telly. But there was a fierce wind into their faces in the second half. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that was really shown on the telly. But if you saw any of the flags blowing around, it was very much left to right.
It was a factor, all right.
Yeah.
But like you say, I'm glad Madigan got that performance out of the way. He doesn't miss. I mean, he's a very high percentage kicker.
He's up over 80% this year.
Which not many people can say that. I think he was he the top point scorer in the competition?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he's top point scorer in the competition.
And he still is he?
Yeah.
So if we'd have got there were so many ifs in that game. If we'd have got the try, we nearly scored a try right in the middle of Kane Douglas' sin binning. If we'd have got those kicks, if we'd have got Goppert's drop goal, if we we missed so many chances to kill that game off, and it just wouldn't die. If we'd have scored first in that second half, I think the game would have been, even if it was a penalty, I think the game would have been killed off. The fact that they scored first on 61 minutes or whatever it was, it just gave them a bit of heart. whoever scores first, it was like the Northampton game with a similar score at half time in the final. It was whoever scored first was, if we didn't score first, we were gone.
Yeah.
And they were the same. So they did score first. And
But it was that crucial, just 14 points. So it was just meant to
Yeah.
convert to tries, and they were back into it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Leinster have this ability, and it's been going on as long as I can remember, to just lose 20 minutes in a match. I mean, I can't think of a big match, any kind of a match, whether we've won or, I mean, even games we have absolutely destroyed the opposition in. I mean, you think back to Cardiff in the quarter-final back 2 years ago or 3 years ago. First 20 minutes of that second half, it was like we'd taken a bottle of Sleepy Nighty-Night at half time. There's no guarantee when it'll happen. The first 20 minutes against Claremont in the quarter-final in 2010, completely asleep.
Yeah.
And then we
were
came back
10
and-
points down.
Yeah.
And he slipped
Then we
up
scored
and got
20
us back
points in
into
20
it.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's like that they just press this button to wake up and just go for it. Now
Yeah.
this time they seem to press it and go to sleep, but they
Sadly.
just seem to be able to. Maybe it's just the quality. We'll talk about the Pro 12 shortly, but maybe it's just that they're not used to playing top notch.
Well, you see, I think I agree with you entirely. I think to a certain extent, and a lot of the Pro 12, Leinster go through it on autopilot. Maybe Ospreys, Munster, Ulster, Connacht, because of the interpro nature of it, and then Glasgow, and then whoever else it happens to be good that year. But for a lot of the time, they're on autopilot because with a full strength team, fully focused on it, Leinster don't. I mean, the Pro 12 and Leinster are out of pretty much everyone's class, with the exception of Munster when they're good, and Glasgow at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep. You
And
can't.
the Ospreys a few years ago.
And Ospreys, but there's always, that's what I mean. There's always a team. But Leinster have consistently been very good, and it's very hard to keep that kind of level of motivation up, especially if you're up against a team like Wasps, who are actually a really good team.
But the Wasps are coming into a very
Coming
purple
into
patch
form,
of
yeah,
exactly.
of- But then, like, you just to back you up there, Dave. About the Pro 12. Like, I mean, you just have to look at, how poorly we've played for the majority of the season in the league, and we're still,
in
4
touching
points
distance.
off the
And
leaders
and top try scorers in the league.
I think it's actually only 3 points.
Is
So,
it? Yeah.
we're,
I mean, nobody could. I mean, even the most ardent fan of Matt O'Connor could claim that we played well this year, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're a handful of points off the top, and top try scorers in the league. So that shows. I mean, it can be hard to, and then you come against somebody like Wasps, who are really playing well at the moment, playing some of the best rugby that they've played in 2 or 3 years.
They didn't do it in the first half, though.
Well, I don't think that the first half looked like vintage Leinster. I thought, okay, there were certain skills deficits, but just the intensity,
But
the
don't
pressure
forget,
we
like,
put
they
them under.
started off that match the minute from the kickoff.
Yeah.
Sorry, second from the kickoff.
They lost a
They
man.
were down to 14 men. Then shortly afterwards, they were down. Like, they conceded a try, so they automatically just rocked. Then sometime in
Lost
the
another
second half,
man,
they
yeah.
lost another guy. And Leinster scored a try just before half time. So, like, everything was going against them in the first half. They kind of just said, hang on, let's just settle down, let's play our own game. And if you looked at the second half, our line speed compared to theirs was miles different. But in the second half, they really started to defend very well, and they took the initiative in defence. Whereas in the first half, they
I think we lost the initiative in defence. Lost the initiative in defence in our defence. Once we defended really well when Douglas was off the park, but for whatever reason, when we were back to 20 players, back to 15 players, so maybe there was a sense
Relaxed
of
or something,
complacency.
yeah.
Maybe they relaxed. I don't know, but that's when it fell apart.
Yeah.
But it was like, who wants to win this game? Douglas got sin bin for a silly error that he made. Then they had a chance to take a penalty. They fluffed that. And that was probably the easiest chance of the game. No one seemed to want to get that game by the scruff of the neck. And even at the end, we had a chance to get, but we just panicked. We went for the drop goal way before we needed to.
Yeah.
And we fluffed our lines again. And then they had a chance to win with the last kick. Obviously, they missed as well.
But
Does anyone know it's actually Jimmy Gopper's any good at dropping goals, by the way? I mean, seriously.
that's 3 times, yeah.
Some out halves aren't very
Well,
good
it's
at
funny
it.
because
I mean, he looks rotten at
because
it.
I was sitting beside John, and I kept saying to him, John, why don't they get Rob Carney to take drop goals? Because I seem to remember him getting a fairly substantial one against
It's
Claremont.
Claremont,
a few years
yeah.
ago.
I remember
From the
getting,
halfway line.
I remember getting
From
one from the
Ireland.
halfway line for
Ireland
Ireland,
Days.
Ireland Day against New Zealand Maori back in 2006 in the Churchill Cup. So he has a boot in him. But sure, so does Ian Madigan. Ian Madigan kick drop goals as well. But anyway, at the end of the day, we managed to fall over the line.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, why do we look at someone
yeah.
falling over a line twice?
Twice.
And here's something else. A lot of people slagging off Boss. Boss came on after 26 minutes.
In fairness, nobody who actually watched the match and watched Boss's performance is slagging him off.
Well,
Because
I rewatched the match and I couldn't find anything to slag him off about. He scored his
there's only
try.
people who decided before Boss came on that they were going to slag him off when he did come on.
Mm-hmm.
Are slagging off Boss. Because I thought he played really, really well, actually.
I thought
I thought it was one of his best performances of the season.
he played very well. And, you know, you can argue for Luke McGrath, and, you know, I wouldn't necessarily be depressed to see Luke McGrath on instead of him. He would have been better at some things and worse at others. Boss was the conservative selection, and he justified his selection in my book anyway. This is kind of trench warfare stuff is what he's good at, you know.
He's good at spotting that little piece of the white line that's
There he
available
is.
between the legs.
And we actually scored this
Yeah.
try twice because Goppert scored it on the other side of the post.
There's actually where Goppert's really good. He's very, very good in one-on-one situations where he can kind of do a little dummy and just put his head down and go.
There he goes.
Fast.
Yeah, he scored a couple
Look,
of tries.
there
like
he
that.
is. He was in. He was in with that anyway.
Well, that was a certain try as well. Yeah,
So why didn't they give us 14 points for that?
to make up for the ones we blew. But yeah, I mean, we got that try. I mean, I don't know why it took so long to well, I suppose that Madigan, he wanted to make sure that the boss one was good before he went to the other one.
Yeah.
It was going to be a try either way, but
They didn't even look at the second one. They
No.
gave the boss one. But you know, I was. If you look at what turned the game, you could possibly say. I was just looked at it earlier, rewatched their first try. Jamie Heaslip got injured in the build-up to their first try. You could see him limping, and he tried to run it over or whatever, but he wasn't. You know, so he wasn't really in full. You know, he wasn't in full flight for defending that particular try. And our maul defence for both of those tries was not great. You know, that's like to be able to do that to us twice in the one game, fairly close. You know, both in the last quarter. They should have been at least as tired as us. But all I'm going to say is missing Heaslip. I mean, he is our captain, and that kind of dirty stuff is, you know, the unseen work he's very good at. Putting his body on the line, close to the line. So when you don't have him, okay, we had Jack Conan, big, serious athlete, but maybe without the experience of a Heaslip.
yeah, well, that's. I mean,
In that-
Conan's a fine young player, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's forgotten more than most number 8s know at this stage. You know.
Yeah.
I think he said the one word there. He's young. He's still only 21,
yeah,
isn't he?
yeah.
So
Oh,
you
yes,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
he doesn't. Well,
So if you look at that, sorry, Jason, for cutting across you. If you look at that,
Why he's apologising now?
if you look at that thing, and then the second try, and the fact that we'd no captain, you know, that basically just, you know, if you want to hang it on something, I'm going to hang it on that. I'm going to hang it on a lack of Jamie Heaslip. Like Redden went off at 26 minutes or something like that. So it wasn't missing Redden. Dave Kearney went off at the very beginning, which kind of limited us in that we didn't have
Well, it limits your bench.
we didn't have anyone to bring on for the outside backs.
If you've got two forced substitutions within the first half hour, it does limit what you can do later in the match. I mean,
Exactly.
to a certain extent, that could be another factor into the 20 minutes of sleepy sleeps because
And we
you know
didn't-
you can't refresh things.
Yeah.
We didn't bring Darcy on.
Yeah.
He was the only other back on the bench.
I thought the front row of the pack. I thought the scrum went very well.
Yeah.
Again, you know, like you could see the pitch cutting up.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just there was cabbage patch after every scrum, wherever it left. And
But it's kind of it's not quite a temporary pitch, but not much of a step above it at the
Yeah.
moment. I mean, they're putting in a Desso Grassmaster during the summer, which is the kind of pitch. It's the same pitches in the Aviva and Croke Park and all the really good stadia. So that'll be good for next season. But
Sort
you
that
know,
out.
they have what they have at the moment.
Yeah, well, I was just saying to you before we started that I was so impressed with the whole atmosphere at the game. Like, I thought, you know, I was sceptical going over and thinking, this is just a team that's been plonked there and they've walked away from their home fans and their area and so on. First of all, any Coventry people that I met, I bought totally into the concept of the team. They're they're mad into rugby in that part of the world. They're mad into they want a successful team, they want a successful sports team. Their football team is doing very poor. It's in the 3rd division, or the old 3rd division.
Ouch.
And they just really were fully behind it. And we even went up to Coventry Rugby Club before or after Leinster's game, And speaking to some of them, like they didn't feel in any way intimidated by a big club coming into their area. They actually thought it was good because what it would do, it would increase the profile of rugby in
yeah.
Coventry and bring through people who were not necessarily would not normally levitated to rugby. And I, was asking them, well, do you feel that they're going to, infringe on you and take your numbers away? And they said, no, not at all. I think that they'll actually benefit.
That's true. I mean, the Midlands is long been a rugby stronghold, long been a sporting stronghold. Coventry's a town that's used to top level sport with Coventry City when they were good, so that's great. But the thing is, that's all very well and good, and it's great, but it's still not right. I mean, I'll tell you who you didn't talk to. Any of the fans they left behind.
Yeah.
No, you're dead
Didn't
right.
turn up.
But
they had their team taken away from
I
them
agree with you,
ultimately at the
but I
end of
agree
the
with you.
day.
But I did actually. One of my friends that came up from London, he was at Saracens against London Irish a few weeks ago, and he bumped into a guy he knows who's a Wasp supporter, and he just said, "Look, it's too far. It's 100 odd miles one way, so it's 200 miles round trip." And he said, "I'm not really into doing it. I'm just going to go with Saracens instead." So they're kind of
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I
see,
mean,
there's no,
the thing
but
is-
there's no
That's pretty depressing
Yeah, but the thing
business.
is, there's no geographical, no geographical.
They haven't tied into that's gone now. They've broken that. London Irish have broken it. The amateur clubs are still where they used to be. Like Wasps or FC is still in Sudbury. London Irish are still in Sunbury and whatever. But they have broken it, and it's kind of a. It's franchising to a certain extent. I mean, like anyone who's a soccer fan will know how soccer fans felt about it, the way they treat, or the way that they froze out Milton Keynes Dons until they handed back the patrimony of the original club. It doesn't make it any more right than rugby. Now, the other side of that is, the Midlands rugby fan is a fine example of the species. They're genuinely lovely people who love their sport and who love rugby and have a great knowledge of it because they're in the middle of the hotbed of it. As you say, you were saying before we went on air, rugby's only 9 miles down the road where the game was born.
Yeah.
You've got Leicester, you've got Coventry, you've got Northampton, all in that same area.
And there's tons more.
Oh, there's
like,
tons more. There's
more.
Birmingham has clubs. I mean, there's clubs everywhere.
Moseley.
So I mean, yes, I mean it's good and it's good for Wasps and what I'm sure they'll be successful there, and I'm sure, well, or certainly until Richardson loses interest, and that's fine, and their fans will be great and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's omelette and eggs kind of thing. Which is more important.
Yeah, well, actually, we had a couple of nice people sitting behind us. One of them, just before the game, he turned to me and he said, your forwards have better handling skills than our backs. And I was going, well, geez, I hope they don't let you down there. And in fairness, in the first half, they didn't. There was some serious offloading between the likes of Toner and Heaslip and forwards and backs mixing with handling. That, we take it for granted here. And in fact, we're slagging them off as having rubbish handling, because we've been used to creme de la creme.
Yeah.
But just when you look at it from the other angle or from another team's angle, you have to, while our skill levels may have dropped, they're still pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
So
actually,
Ireland has,
especially in the pack.
in recent years, I mean, Ireland has kind of produced a lot of footballing number 8s. You go back to Anthony Foley and you take it forward from there. Whereas in England, they've traditionally had a power man at number 8, be it Dean Richards. You take it forward, even Mark Easter, who's back in the England squad, Tom Waldron. They're all power men. And previous
Ben Moan
Ben
Morgan.
Big power heavy.
And good old
Vunipola. So that's what they went. We always went in recent years. We've always had footballing 8. So,
but you have to sort of basically see our genetics in Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
Like we have to go for the skill and try and run around people rather than run through them because we're not that big and we just can't do it.
It hasn't stopped Fergus McFadden.
Nathan Hughes and Billy Vunipola and Thomas Waldron are not necessarily from the
that's true.
the genetic pool of England either, But anyway.
But like you mentioned there about sort of look at our A team. I think it's the 4th year in a row we're in a semi-final of the BNI Cup.
That was a brilliant result.
Fantastic result.
I wasn't expecting that.
It was 52-31.
A pretty inexperienced A team.
Very
at
inexperienced.
That, I mean, there was a lot of guys who you'd think would be kind of regular A team selections weren't there, and I thought it was a superb result yet again. Yeah,
and like you have to admire the coaching and the commitment to bringing through practically all Irish players in that team, not just playing some of the guys that are brought in but aren't necessarily in the squad.
Well, the quicker we get some of those, maybe you might get the odd one in now during the Six Nations, and like with 2 ideal games coming up, Zebre and and the Dragons.
Yeah.
Traditionally,
we
you've
could
always
throw
had one
in
or two sneak in this period of time, haven't you?
Well, we could throw in a Keane Kelleher or a Gary Ringrose in there.
Yeah.
Just
Cathal Marsh.
well, Carl Marsh is injured.
Yeah, he's
and
injured, yeah.
how badly injured he
Ross
is.
Byrne.
But you know, those guys could make a name for themselves now during the Six Nations, and we've got such a log jam of those of outside backs in the academy at the moment. We
And
need to.
Timmins had a huge game from what I
Yeah,
read.
another great prospect, and there's a couple of props bubbling under as well that are really serious. So you know,
Long may it last.
long way at last. We won't have to get rid of our academy.
Well, one team that used to have a great academy was Toulouse. Like I was watching that game over on Sunday, and I couldn't get over. Like they were gifted a couple of tries from block downs.
Yeah.
Then they managed to throw it away. Then they went back in the lead, and in the last few minutes they conceded
pretty
a penalty.
bad, yeah.
and-
Everything we always say about French clubs, about, is there an honesty of effort there? Is there the will to do well when there's nothing on the line? Or we had two of the best performances of the weekend were from clubs that were untypical results for French clubs. Racing Metro hammering Saints in Franklin's Gardens, the almost the most English of English grounds, and
Yeah, nobody's ever done that before.
no, what I'm saying, no, you wouldn't see a French team come over and do it. But I suppose
True.
it's like I say, why are Toulon the most successful French team? Because the one with the fewest French players. And then Montpellier doing this in a game they had nothing to play for. Okay,
Yeah.
they have a new coach, so they're obviously playing for reputation and contract, but nothing on the line in terms of the competition. Beaten Toulouse. Two actually very good games. I enjoyed both games. Imhoff was superb for Saints, and René Ranger was absolutely brilliant for.
He always is, though.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, for Montpellier. But the wind was a huge factor in that game as well. There was a really strong wind in that game. It nearly tore the afro off him.
Something that I think it was Stephen Jones when he was in Claremont. He was in his autobiography that the first time he went to Claremont, he asked the coach, "Right, what's the tactics for the weekend?" And the coach looked at him and went, "Tactics? You're the out half. What are you asking me about the tactics for, you crazy bastard?" And I think it was Eddie O'Sullivan was saying the other day about how Toulouse are still a little bit like that. They've had the same coach for 20 years now. He's there, or in fact 22 years. But that they still have this element of make it up as you go along, play what's in front of you. That they don't have the rigid structure that somebody like Joe Schmidt, to take an extreme example, would have, or a lot of what they call Anglo-Saxon coaches. Which seems to include Kiwis and anybody outside France, basically, who plays rugby, would have where there's a structure and there's a we do this, we do these phases, we
And
do
then
this
there's the
off
flourishes on top.
exactly.
But then it's all
With
flourishes
them,
and nothing else.
you gotta, and that's why France are so hard to play against, or that type of a French team are so hard to play against, because they're so off the cuff they can even fool themselves. They don't know what they're going to do next. Never mind knowing what they're going to do next. So they can be they're the Van Morrison of rugby teams. They can be either incredibly good live or incredibly depressingly bad live.
For our slightly younger viewers, they're the badly drawn boy of rugby teams.
Okay. We have younger viewers now.
Well, there was one enjoyable match I watched. Was Ulster giving Leicester a bit of a doing.
Hammer, and I missed that one, unfortunately.
Cave got a hat trick.
Yeah.
And it was great to see, more importantly, that Ian
Henderson
Henderson
back,
Yeah, he
breaking
made-
bones and taking names. Yeah, I mean, fair play to Ulster. But Ulster beating Tigers in Ravenhill.
It's a bit of a
All
habit.
the time.
Yeah.
They must just hate them. Like they probably played
Just
them
like Ulster hate us.
4 or 5 times maybe in the last 8 or 9 years.
Years
Now.
one there.
No, I remember being beaten by 30 odd points once.
33-3 or something
Yeah,
in one
yeah.
year, yeah.
That was the year that
Ian Paisley was
that the boys were
protesting.
outside protesting. Yeah. But
Yeah, it was good to see the result, even if I missed the game. I think we were otherwise
to
engaged.
be honest, I watched the game and there wasn't a whole lot to it. I mean, Ulster beat them and beat them well. I mean, Tigers were never really in it, which is kind of weird because it's a game they had to win, but they never came close. But I suppose Ulster didn't let them.
As it turned out, if Leicester had won that game, they probably would have pipped Saracens.
Yeah, they would have
to,
done. Yeah,
if all the other results had stayed the same.
Mhm.
The other thing I had a look at was what would have happened if we had won our game. And there were a couple of things that could have happened. One, we would have ended up playing Wasps. If we got a bonus point win and everything else had been the same, we would have ended up playing Wasps. And then if we had a one without a bonus point by a certain amount of points, we could have climbed above, and we could have been playing Northampton, which probably would have been at home as well. So, to be honest, while playing Wasps at home is probably slightly preferable to playing Bath at home, there's not that much in it, and both of them I would rather than Northampton.
No, I
So
mean,
I think we did all right.
I think we actually came out. I mean, obviously you can do nothing about the semi-final. It's a draw and you're away, but you know we
We
kind
can
of
get into it for a
get
start.
into it. That's the first thing you can do about it. And this, I mean, we kind of looked out in the way if we're going to do it, we've got the best opportunity. We've given ourselves the opportunity to do it. So
Well, I believe there's pressure from the TV companies to put it on Good Friday, and Leinster Branch are trying to fight against
I would
that.
be very surprised if the TV companies would want to do that. I mean, a lot of their sponsorship would be dependent on, you know, alcohol sponsorship, who'd be putting pressure on them not to do that.
Yeah.
It would be crazy. I mean, they've got 4 quarterfinals. They want to put one on a Friday. They're not going to put the one in the country where all the pubs are closed.
No, it'd be a bit crazy, all right. Well,
Especially in the European Champions Cup sponsored by Heineken.
somebody asked me about this because they're going to be travelling here for the quarter-final earlier in the week, and I looked back, and for the last 10 years, it's always been 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, or 3 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. It's never been anything else for European quarter-finals. Now, I didn't go back past 10 years, but, you know, it'd be very unusual for them to play it on a Friday.
Yeah, wasn't it last year that they played the?
I think it was 3 and 1 last year.
Yeah, because Ulster don't like playing on Sundays, and they were playing at home against, so they basically moved their match,
Yeah.
and ours then was changed. I think originally it was supposed to be Saturday, but they moved ours to Sunday.
Well, it's been 3 and 1 a few times. I think the French like playing on a Sunday. That's why we were
French TV likes it. I don't think the French fans themselves like it, but French TV certainly does.
put on over there.
Well, it was interesting. Like, there's a lot of talk in the media about the demise of Celtic rugby, and like, admittedly, it was a poor vintage this year for
Yep.
Pro 12 rugby. Like, only one of the Pro 12 teams getting out, but like, it hasn't really. Like, I just look back over since '09. Like, you know, the Irish teams have contributed 27% to the quarterfinalists, English 29%, French 36%, Welsh
The rest.
the rest like 9% between Wales and Scotland. But like, yeah, it's a bad year this year, but like last year there was 3 from Ireland in the quarterfinals. You know, it's just, it happens to be like,
And if
if
Sean,
you go back to 2012, there's only
It was
one.
5.
Yeah,
and
and it was only,
Sean Maitland makes that pass against Bath, you've another one in there. So I think I mean,
but it's like people, like I was just, listening to Jerry Tony, and I was like, oh my God, it's doom and gloom. I remember going over, I was going away, and Munster were playing against Northampton in the 2000 Heineken Cup final, and like, it was all, this is the end of an era, this is the end of this team, they'll never all play together. I think that was 14, 15 years ago. And he was like calling the demise of it because they're all going to break up and they'll never be playing again, and it's melodramatic stuff.
there
like,
is. I mean,
Well, I think-
what they do is because they're dealing to an audience that isn't exclusively knowledgeable about rugby, and they're looking at 2000, like you're saying, 2012, when there was, over half the quarterfinalists were from the Pro 12.
3 semi-finals.
3 semi-finals were from the Pro 12, and then you go and you take it down to now, and you go, oh well, it's gone from there to there, so that's terrible. Obviously, it's a big fall off, and it doesn't go into any of the depth. There's no granularity there. I mean, it's just top line figures are bad, but sometimes, I mean, the Pro 12. I mean, you've got a situation where a couple of the teams are rebuilding at the moment. I mean, Munster are in a huge rebuilding phase. Ulster are going through a rebuilding phase. We're going through a rebuilding phase. We're just kind of seem to be weathering it better at the moment. And Ospreys are rebuilding, and they're the traditional kind of, if you like, Pro 12 powerhouses. So, I don't know.
Well, also, I did hear Jerry Donnelly say that if you were to bet, that somebody said to him in 2010 that, oh, here we go, this is it, it's the French French domination, because it was Biarritz versus Toulouse in the final. But, they beat...
That was Matt Williams, actually.
Was it? Well, they beat Leinster and Munster in the semis, and as we all know, Leinster went on to win 2 more in the following couple of years. So it wasn't the French dominance, but I'm afraid it might be now.
I don't know. I mean, we were in a situation in 2000, like you're talking about 2012. I mean, Leinster coach was able to go out and spend $7,500 a week on a player.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder now. I mean, technically, we're in a better situation economically. Why don't we do the same again and show that
Well, maybe
there's
with
the
this,
same kind of confidence in the place?
well, with this $750,000 from this home quarter final, we might be splashing the cash a bit on some Southern Hemisphere players after the World Cup. that the fact that it's gone.
I'm talking about next week.
Oh, sorry. Well, do we need them next week?
No, we need them in 4 weeks' time.
Yeah, maybe. But
We-
on that subject,
I mean, it's not an unusual thing to do. Teams do that all the time, and we did it, and we did it to great benefit, great short and long term benefit.
but we had injuries to cover. Like what that leads me on to is we actually have by the 15th, our next Leinster game, we technically should have 0 injuries.
Mm.
Now, okay, we could get played out of it in the Italy game and lose 3 players, or God knows what could happen in the
Can
Six
you see
Nations.
the bluebirds floating around his head? Or?
It's in hell of a
But
fight.
as it stands, before we play another minute of rugby, we will have all our players back allegedly by the 15th. So, even allowing for a few injuries during the Six Nations, we're doing, as long as they're not absolutely critical people that we get injured, we're looking okay.
All them and Israel Folau will be all right.
But you just going back to the Pro 12, like the results have been shocking this season. Like it's just a poor
Just a bad year
vintage
for lots of
like,
reasons.
Leinster are the only team out of the Pro 12 that won more matches than lost. 3 other teams won 3 and lost 3, but the other guys lost
Got
more than-
hockeyed.
Yeah.
But no, that's valid. But like I said, you've got obviously the 3 kind of other go-to sides. The two Irish guys and Osprey are going through rebuilding phase. Glasgow are still. I mean, this is only their second year of being good.
But they have to be careful that if they don't
Yeah,
do
they
something,
have to deepen their squad.
but if they don't do something, Dave, they're going to end up like Ulster.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can only go back
Yeah.
a couple of
Yeah.
times, and then you have to get rid
They
of
have to deepen and strengthen their squad. I agree with you entirely.
But they're losing
But then
Manuelo and
you look-
Maitland.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to cry too many tears over either of those. And
But
I
they
think
have to replace them with.
they have to
Italy
replace
Cup
them with
players.
quality. And I think if they took Hogg with them, they wouldn't worry too much about that either. But you look at Connacht. Connacht are a side that we don't want to succeed in Europe, and they've managed
Do
to.
we not?
They've managed. Well, we don't really. We want them to succeed in the Pro 12.
In the
Yeah.
Challenge Cup, sorry, yeah.
And we want them to get into Europe proper, and they seem to be kind of without even trying. They're doing well.
Yeah, but like I think they had a load of injuries to important players.
Yeah.
They played their A team, and they did the same thing
Yeah.
in France earlier on in the competition and won as well.
I don't think they. I mean, they're a team that doesn't have Europe as their priority, but I see that they've been fiddling with all the various different rules in every league to try and find a way of making the Challenge Cup worthwhile.
Yeah.
Which is something we probably come to because they've changed all the rules with finals and playoffs.
That's
and
been on
everything.
the books
Yeah.
for a while, actually. Just nobody's been
Yeah.
going on about it. That there was going to be a place given to the
Oh, yeah,
Challenge Cup
yeah.
winners at the expense of whoever is next in their league.
Yeah.
So it means if the Dragons, for the sake of argument, win the Challenge Cup and they're 9th in the league, they go into the playoff instead of the 7th place team, which would, as it stands, be the Scarlets, I think. But as regards Connacht, they're going to play Gloucester now, who are they did qualify 8th
Yeah.
in fairness, so they're going to play Gloucester, who are the unbeaten team, who are kicking ass in the Challenge Cup and look like they mean business. So
Well, David Humphries
get
is
over
after
that.
poaching another one of the Ulster. He's got
That's
Johnny
right,
Bell going
Johnny
over to
Bell.
him.
Well, I think Les Kiss is lining up, getting some ducks in a row. He's
He's
signed
got-
He's got a guy called Joe Barcara.
as the defence coach,
Yeah.
Johnny Bell's role for
Yeah.
next season. So I think
He's former
Yeah.
Waratahs.
yeah.
So I think ducks have been lined up there. So I mean, it'd be nice for Connacht if they could do well enough. But ultimately, I want them to qualify for Big Cup
Yeah.
through the league. I think that would be the best thing for them. Best thing for Irish rugby would be that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, one thing that you brought up there was that the Pro 12 have announced during the week that the final is going to be played in Ravenhill, which is kind of breaking tradition, or the small tradition that's been built up over the last 5 years. That's the winner of the league or the highest placed team in the final gets the home final.
Yeah. Well, the Welsh are not pleased. Surprisingly, I heard John Feehan interviewed about it, and he was saying, "Well, the Munster have the Barbarians game that weekend in Thomond Park. The Glasgow were the only other people with a bid. Don't know.
Liberty's unavailable. There's a football match.
Well, actually, there isn't apparently.
According to Swansea, there is.
They're playing on the 15th and on the 31st. It's allegedly available. But anyway, Swansea didn't have a bid in. Nobody else had a bid in, so it was kind of by default that they went with Ulster. In fairness,
I don't really mind where it is, but I'm just wondering why did they decide to go down this road rather than
leave it the way. Well, it's simple because now they've only got 1 week to plan the final because of the Champions Cup being moved.
But I don't see that being an issue because if you got the game
5 working days to sell a final.
If you got there's not a problem if the game is in the ground of one of the teams. You can say
surely everybody wants
yeah.
It means that if
if Leinster were in a final and found out they were in a final on Saturday and the final was the following Saturday, no problem. Same with Ulster, same with Ospreys.
Like Ospreys, are people going? Honestly, people going to travel from Swansea? Well, they hardly go and get out of their armchair and drive up to the stadium. Are they going to get on a plane and go to Belfast?
I agree, but I think that if it goes to the sponsors are the ones who are driving this. Guinness or whoever the hell are the ones that want this thing fixed and they want to market it and they want to sell. I believe they're only keeping 2,000 tickets per finalist. So it's not great for rugby.
There's nothing about it that isn't stupid.
It's certainly not great for the Welsh who don't like to travel.
So it's not great for any of the fans. It's not great for any of the teams. It's not great for the sponsors, and it's not great for television.
Well, it's supposed to be great for the sponsors because they're the ones driving it. So
how does it? I don't see how having your logo plastered on a pitch in front of an empty stadium looks good.
Because it's all about the TV.
Yeah, well, I don't.
But maybe they're just presuming that people from Ulster are going to buy up all the tickets.
Yeah.
Like maybe they will. But what
They might go.
What happens if they move?
Yes, the notoriously generous Ulster people. They're very
No.
Fahulak.
No, but that's fine, and they say, oh well, we might be in the final and so on. But what happens if next season and they said, oh, we're going to play it in in Cardiff, let's say. Oh, well, no, come on, let's be realistic. Let's say they're going to play it in Cardiff. And let's say Glasgow get into the final. Glasgow brought 3,000 down to Dublin for not particularly huge numbers.
It's a lot more than the Ospreys brought.
Huge numbers
Probably
from their
times.
point of view.
Yeah.
But even if we brought 5,000, that's still going to leave an awful lot of empty gaps in a stadium. And the last thing the sponsor wants is it
an
looks
empty
like.
stadium,
You remember in 2003 in the Heineken Cup,
Cup,
in Dublin where there was 30,000.
I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but this looks like super stupid. It really does. I mean, was the system that they had before so broken? I mean, they've had three. They had every match has been a full house.
Yeah.
Every match is, there's been a couple of some of them are a bit one-sided, but there's been a lot of good matches. Great colour, great spectacle. Particularly the Ulster Leinster final, the colour and spectacle was.
And
Well, in fairness,
the one in Munster as well.
Yeah, and the one in Munster.
In fairness, 4 of them have been in the RDS, and one of them has been.
But I think that's
Thomond
got
Park.
more to do with it than anything else. I think there's a fear that there is a fear within certain elements of rugby that Leinster are moving too far ahead of the rest in terms of, both professionalism, finances, academy. There is that fear of it. I mean, it's been spoken about a couple of times in the press. Once constructively, Lennon, I don't agree with him, but at least he's trying to be constructive about how do we harness how far ahead Leinster are moving of everyone else, and then Jim McLaughlin talking out shite out of him today. But there is that fear, and there is an element of kind of like, let's make sure that it doesn't end up in Leinster because we don't have it again.
Well, I'll drive 2 hours up the road to watch Leinster, and I'll probably buy a ticket even if we're not in it.
I know you would, John, and that's fine because we're on the same island. We're talking about there's potential of 2 teams not being from the same island, and might necessarily they don't even fill out their own grounds. One team has an average of about 6,000. One has an average of about 7,000. Are they really?
We're talking about the Ospreys in Glasgow here.
Which are the first and second team in the league currently.
Now they are.
Okay.
They haven't played each other.
In fairness,
So.
I think the Glasgow one's a bit of a red herring because they're Glasgow people have no problems, and it's not very difficult actually.
I was about to say, it's easier to get.
But Dave, they brought 3,000 to the final last year.
But Belfast would be different. Remember,
Belfast is much easier to get to.
It's
Plus,
technically it's the same country.
Belfast is actually more hassle for Munster than it is for Glasgow.
Yeah.
So
okay, they have to get on a ferry, and instead of them getting on a train for an hour and a half, they stay in. They have to get from Stranraer to Larne, and then they get from Larne to wherever.
No, it goes into Belfast now. But
they can drive anyway.
It's a 2.5 hour trip. I mean, it's not the world's hugest trip.
Okay.
And it's the same money and the same telephone companies and the same kind of everything. And a lot of Glaswegians and Belfast people, there are quite close links
You
between
can get
them.
a budget bus for
Yeah.
hardly any money.
Yeah.
Cheaper.
The
than you get
bigger
a bus
problem is
there
for
and
Munster.
from
But
Cork.
no, you're right. You're right about the whole. There is the fear that you could get a situation where you have
Okay.
2 teams that are bloody far away from the ground, having to come to a ground for a final that they haven't really got very many tickets for.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about 4,000, is that the limit of your ambition? You're holding back
Like-
4,000 tickets
like,
for,
let's think of
sponsor,
the-
for the participating
Let's think of
teams?
the final a couple of years ago. Was it against Ulster where they had the stadium split and one end was blue and one end was
Yeah.
it was an absolutely magnificent vista
Spectacle.
of it, spectacle of
Yeah.
it. Like if you're saying that they're going to give most of the tickets to the home city, so that they want to put bums on seats, where they're going to just rock up in their own club jerseys or their regular their civvies,
We'll
you
find
know.
out what traditions will be started.
And then there's going to be a few thousand loyal fans from both clubs just going to try and scavenge for tickets.
An unfortunate choice of words in light of the city we're talking about.
I said loyal fans.
I know you said loyal. But no, it's just dumb.
Yes,
It's-
it is.
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
I've played devil's advocate long enough. It's a load of shite.
the Wolfhounds are playing the Saxons down the official opening at Musgrave Park.
Irish
down in
Independent
Cork.
Park.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an interesting selection because it's going to because there's so few players available. It's going to tell us a lot about the team that goes out against Italy,
Yeah.
and maybe that might be something that Joe's thinking about. There might be a lot of guys, or not a lot of guys, but a certain number of guys who might have to double up because he doesn't want to give anything away about the fixture that actually matters, which is the fixture against Italy.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, his thinking is probably, well, no matter who we have, we should beat Italy.
But you never know.
I
We
think
beat
Joe
them 2
Schmidt
years
thinks
ago.
like that.
Yeah, he doesn't think like that, but he'll have prepared a team that will beat Italy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
You
but
know?
like you slip up against these guys, and that's your
That's your season
gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Good night,
But
Vienna.
he's-
And it's happened.
It's going to have to. He's going to have to come up with. I mean, we are strictly limited in the amount of players we have at the moment. You know, just through actual availability.
And the other thing about it, Italy is they're always up for it in Rome.
Yeah.
And they're always up for it in their first game when they haven't lost anything
Correct.
yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the worst time to play them. Okay, it's great to have them over with and get them because they're always give you a tough time in the forwards and they always give you 60 hard minutes of pulverization. So it's a good game to warm up and it's a good game to have over, but you have to win it. You know, preferably by a score, but you have to win it. So with all the bodies we're missing with Sexton. They're saying Murray is going to be available for it, but a neck problem. I'm not too confident.
Any
that
doubt,
they'll-
I can't see
Oh,
them.
I
risking
wouldn't.
risk him.
No, I wouldn't risk
And
him.
they're saying the same-
No, when you
Redden's strained ligaments in his
Yeah.
knee. He could be.
They're saying Redden will be fine as well. They're saying everybody is allegedly going to be fine
for the Wolfhounds or for Italy.
for Italy.
Yeah.
So apart from Dave Carney, maybe everybody is going to be available, and other people who are already injured. Donncha Ryan is still out, isn't he?
Yeah.
There's quite a few. There's a mounting. I mean, none of them are absolute frontliners, but apart from Johnny Sexton and Murray, but there's a mounting. It's in the teens the amount of players we're missing already from the various provinces, and thankfully only two of them are
Be interesting
frontliners.
to see how if Luke Fitzgerald, like his form has been fabulous. Like he was
He's
great on
On
Saturday.
fire, yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see if he's managed to push his way into the starting 15.
Well, as things stand with the fitness of everybody that we're aware of, as it is, I can't see how you can look beyond Luke and Henshaw as a partnership. I just don't.
Payne
see
and
it.
Henshaw, maybe.
Yeah, did Jared Payne work all that well as a centre? I mean, he's a good footballer and made best efforts, but I don't think it hasn't worked. I mean, it's an experiment that was brave, but it hasn't worked. I think.
And everybody
Best
in
draw
Ulster,
line under it.
everybody in Ulster thinks he's a far better 15. Anyway,
yeah,
so
yeah.
He's sensational 15.
Yeah.
It's like Keith Earl is not a centre. He's
Yeah.
a great winger though.
yeah.
I draw a line under the Payne experiment. I don't think you can look much further than Henshaw and Earl or Henshaw and Fitzgerald. I mean, they've gone really, really well since Fitzgerald came back. I mean, it's like watching the old school again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see.
He's got 46 in the squad. Like, I mean, most fellas with 2 legs and 2 arms.
Yeah, but like,
contract.
if you think about it, there's 2 squads.
Yeah,
There's the
he hasn't
Wolfhounds.
got that many in the squad.
There's the Wolfhounds and there's Italy and France. So you actually need 23 players for both of those games. And okay, there's going to be players that play in both the Italy game and the Wolfhounds game. But there is a need to have more than.
Yeah, there was
30 players.
There was a lot of tittering from some members of the media about the size of the squad, and they were making jokes
I
about.
couldn't believe they
Yeah.
were slagging it off
And I was
considering
go- I was
we need
going, they do realise it's actually
2 games.
2 games, and I don't know how many of them did or how many of them are just thick.
Might be an element of.
But you
tick
got
in there.
a sense that there's going to be a similar enough kind of feel to it as the Georgia game that we played.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
autumns.
Yeah.
You know, I can't imagine there might be one or two that'll make a crossover, but I can't see there's going to be too many that'll start in both games.
No, there might be a few who are like, say for example, maybe if he does decide to risk, say Sean, or Jack McGrath might bench or whatever. But beyond that, I can't see them being too many. But we have, even in our straitened injury circumstances, what Schmidt has done over the last 2 years is created a level of depth that we do
Yeah.
actually have a certain amount of depth that we can deal with this issue.
Phenomenal depth
I mean-
compared to what we had.
If we went out against an English team and we had a second row of, say, Dave Foley and Ian Henderson, would you worry about it?
Dave Foley's actually injured. He's out now.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
he
a
is,
pity.
yeah.
though. It's a pity. Well, okay. So
Yeah,
somebody
but
else-
I agree. I take your
You know
point.
what I
yeah.
mean? I mean, and Dave Foley would have been regarded as so far down the pecking order at a certain point, maybe 18 months ago. Whereas now, you wouldn't worry about him. And there's guys like that. I mean, you look who's injured. I mean, okay, so Dave Foley's injured, Duncan Ryan's injured, Dan Toohey
Injured.
These are a lot of guys who will be significant players. But there's still guys you can pull in. I mean, Henderson's back from injury. There's guys all around the place.
Henderson, Toner, Paul O'Connell. Yeah, you've got Mike
Mike
McCarthy, who's
McCarthy.
not even in the squad. Or actually, he is in the squad. Sorry, but there are plenty of available guys who can do a job there. So.
And tough nuts, a lot of them.
Mm.
Well, anyway, thanks a million, boys, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.